Her moment of rage becomes viral. Before anyone knew what had truly transpired, those statements went viral on social media. Because what transpired between Aryna Sabalenka and Alex Eala wasn't only a point or a rally. Fans questioned whether they had just seen the emergence of a new rivalry because it was such an unvarnished and real event. One shout, one swing, and one unbeatable victor. Suddenly, everyone in the stadium halted in shock. Sabalenka looked at Eala as if she was shocked that she had lost at her own game. That was not how Eala was supposed to defend herself. She shouldn't have snapped. Even the most composed players, however, react strangely to pressure. Something inside of her broke in that instant. Or perhaps something woke up at last. What transpired would split the tennis community and cause this moment to go viral for both positive and negative reasons. A story was quietly developing behind the scenes before the moment went viral, and the video went viral on Twitter, TikTok, and every tennis page on the internet. A story that went unnoticed until it exploded. Alex Eala had been moving up the rankings more quickly than anyone had anticipated. Giants weren't meant to be in danger from her. It wasn't meant to be her who appeared on center court with a level of confidence that seemed virtually unattainable for a 19-year-old. Furthermore, she wasn't intended to be the player that the top player in the world had to be concerned about. Tennis, however, is not a scripted sport. Each season, it writes new ones. In the conventional sense, Eala wasn't a prodigy. She didn't come with the fearsome power of an early career Sabalenka or the hype of a Coco Gauff. What she possessed was something far more erratic: accuracy, endurance, and a serenity that unnerved detractors. They said she was too calm, too quiet, and too young to do any serious harm. Even if she pretended they didn't, those remarks remained with her. And she seemed to sense something deeper within herself with each victory, something that was just ready to explode. In contrast, Sabalenka was on the other side of the tennis world. A two-time Grand Slam champion, a formidable woman whose screams caused audiences to recoil. She was pure athletic intimidation. She was already half defeated when players entered bouts against her for years. Her serve was warming in addition to being quick. Her forehand was difficult in addition to being hefty. Not only was her personality fierce, but it was also unyielding. Nobody anticipated that she would perceive Eala as a threat because of this. The two had previously met in tournament rooms, player lounges, and practice courts, but there had never been any actual conflict. Not up till now. Not until the young Filipina's wins began to build and the season changed. I didn't realize she reminded me of a young Sabalenka until commenters started murmuring. Some athletes view comparisons as compliments. They were like sparks on dry grass to Sabalenka. Even so, hardly one foresaw the impending storm, despite the tension quietly building. Eala was not followed by cameras with the same compulsive attention as top seeds. The majority of fans had a hazy impression of her. She was talented, disciplined, promising, and not threatening. Not quite yet. However, strain was rising behind every composed face Eala displayed on the court. Pressure from criticism, pressure from expectations, and pressure from bearing the dreams of a country. The strain from realizing that she would need to transform into a different version of herself in order to defeat someone like Sabalenka. Everything revolved around their next match, which started out like any other and was meant to be normal, but as soon as they set foot on the court, something seemed off. Sabalenka grinned. Eala remained still. And for the first time, their energy clashed in the center of an open sky like two storm fronts colliding. This was the match that would change everything, even if no one knew it at the time. The internet was about to collapse at this precise instant. She finally lost it at this point. Everyone in the stadium felt something beneath the surface as the game started with the customary excitement. Something unsettling, something harsh. At first, it wasn't clear. It wasn't really loud. It was the kind of tension that lurks in specifics. An extended gaze, a firm hold on the racket, an excessively long pause. And it was hard to overlook those subtleties between Eala and Sabalenka. Sabalenka came out fighting from the first rally, as if she intended to end the match before it had even begun. She sent power shots deep into the corners, hammering the ball with that distinctive savagery for which she was renowned. Under tremendous pressure, the majority of players broke. Eala, however, did not. She took each blow with an odd serenity, as if she had anticipated the storm and was prepared to face it head-on. The first trigger was that since Sabalenka wasn't accustomed to that expression. Not from novices, not from younger players, and most definitely not from someone who was meant to be scared by her presence. Something flared beneath Sabalenka's face as Eala matched her first explosive forehand with an even sharper angle. It's recognition, not terror. Realizing that this would not be a routine situation. Then the moment arrived that completely altered the match's energy. Nearly 20 shots in a lengthy rally, with neither player giving up. Sabalenka struck hard, in a desperate attempt to force an error. With a degree of resolve that made the spectators murmur, Eala chased down ball after ball. Suddenly, Eala hit a crisp, loud, and unmistakable forehand winner down the line, landing exactly on the baseline's edge. The stadium let forth a gasp. Sabalenka froze. Eala didn't celebrate either. She just moved toward the baseline, turned around, and got ready for the next point. The second trigger was that quiet confidence and reluctance to accept Sabalenka's intimidation. With a little grievance, Sabalenka nimanched toward the umpire. Something about the ball being out, something about the line. However, the replay was evident. The ball made contact with the line. Not even close. Sabalenka, the umpire, and the spectators were all aware of it. However, this was no longer about the point. It has to do with pride. Returning to the baseline, Sabalenka gazed across the court as though she was expecting a response from Eala. However, Eala's silence just made her more enraged. Her subsequent serve was delivered at a speed of 120 miles per hour, but Eala counterattacked with such accuracy that Sabalenka staggered backward in an attempt to reach it. The third trigger. Sabalenka mumbled something under her breath at that precise moment. Although the entire remark was not captured by the cameras, the energy abruptly altered. It was felt by the crowd. Eala felt it. And Eala's face lit up with emotion for the first time. Fire, not fear. The match was no longer about tennis after that. It has to do with control. It has to do with respect. Aryna Sabalenka is back with us after defeating Jester Gullo. Why do the two of you? Each point marked the start of the photo that would soon become globally popular. Everyone in attendance sensed the shift in the game from competitive to explosive. A nearly tangible change in energy. Every eye in the stadium focused on the same truth as the rallies got longer, louder, and more frantic. This was now a confrontation rather than a match. For Sabalenka, Eala's poise just made everything worse. Each time the Belarusian fired a huge forehand, Eala returned it with a calm precision that bordered on disdain. Nothing cuts deeper in the world of professional athletes than an opponent who refuses to break, even if it's not deliberate or evident. And social media went into a frenzy because of that unwavering calm. Before the first performance was even over, clips started to circulate. With captions like, "The kid's not scared at all," fans shared slow-motion replays of Eala's winning line painting. After Sabalenka lost a crucial point, others focused on her face and tweeted things like, "She's about to explode." They weren't only observing the game. They were anticipating the point at when everything broke. The rally that ignited the internet followed. Sabalenka anticipated that her strong cross-court stroke would end the game. However, Eala slid, reached, and delivered an unbelievable flick pass that painted the sideline once more. It was such a ridiculous shot that the crowd hesitated, almost doubting what they were witnessing. The stadium roared when the line judge verified it was in, and Sabalenka's response went viral online like a spark striking gasoline. The microphones barely caught a mumbled sentence, a step forward, then a stare. It only required that. Fans on the internet analyzed each frame in a matter of minutes. According to some, Sabalenka cursed at Eala. She was complaining to herself, according to others. Some people stood up for her. Some referred to it as intimidation. The video already had a life of its own, so the truth was irrelevant. Tennis pages posted side-by-side images of Eala's composed expression and Sabalenka's annoyance, captioning photos with remarks like as, "the future versus the present." Commentators also contributed and previous players offered their opinions. The plot was too compelling, fan bases emerged, and debate threads flourished. Eala continued to play as if there was no digital noise at all. However, Sabalenka was not exempt from the commotion. Cameras captured her breathing deeply, shaking her head, and holding her racket tighter than usual during changeovers. She wasn't melting down just yet, but she was. being forced into a location she didn't often go to, where she appeared fragile, human, and breakable. Half of the stadium was aware that the match was quickly becoming history by the time Eala broke Sabalenka's serve. While the other half waited for the unavoidable explosion, they observed Sabalenka. The court was no longer the only place where the tension existed. It seeped into live streams, group chats, phones, and the audience. Something was going to break. And when it happened, the moment would become the one that was viewed globally, the one that transformed a champion into a storm and a rising star into a headline. At first, Sabalenka's loss of control wasn't audible. It wasn't an explosion sound, a shattering racket, or a scream. It was a single piercing exhale, the kind that athletes let out when their frustration finally triumphs. The stadium heard it, Eala heard it, and all the cameras zoomed in as if they were waiting for the next fracture in the armor, so the stillness that ensued was worse than any outburst she could have made. In the second set, it occurred at 4-2. Sabalenka blasted a backhand that was inches off after another vicious rally. She spun around, glaring at herself, her box, the umpire, anything to deflect the mounting pressure inside, instead of Eala. For the first time in the entire fight, she appeared cornered as her chest rose and sank. Fans would later call the break at that point. With heavy feet, she approached her towel while mumbling something that was only partially captured by microphones. It wasn't pretty, whatever she said. Videos of it went viral right away. She allegedly cursed at the umpire, according to several fans. Some claimed she was making fun of Eala's composure. The reality? Nobody was aware. However, stories don't wait for information. They write on their own. And it was. After defeating Jessica Glow, Aryna Sabalenka is now back with us. Why do the two of you? Sabalenka was referred to as a poor sport by outsiders. She was protected by devoted fans who claimed she was under a great deal of stress. The ferocity was condemned by tennis traditionalists. Younger admirers praised it, describing it as authentic, raw, and finally dramatic. Everybody had a viewpoint. However, Eala had a different feeling. Because Eala started to feel the burden of being on the other side of Sabalenka's frustration as it increased. It had nothing to do with fear. It wasn't intimidation. It was something much more intricate, something that sportsmen hardly ever acknowledge. She felt accountable, not guilty, but accountable for being the catalyst and forcing Sabalenka into uncharted terrain. And that emotional struggle intensified the impact of what came next. Sabalenka made the decision to go all out on the very next point. She served with such force that it reverberated across the stadium. Eala returned a drifting ball that sat upright in the middle of the court after barely getting a racket on it.